I'd like to welcome Rick Webster, who has joined us here from Colorado Springs, Army veteran and current Floor Coverings International franchisee. Rick, welcome.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, really great to have you, and representing FCI, which is a great franchise. Interested to hear more about that. But if you would, why don't we start with, give us an overview of your, just a brief background, your military background, you personally, where you are in life, and kind of what brought you into franchising.
Okay. Very Reader's Digest version. I enlisted in the Army in 1985 in the National Guard as a cannon cocker. I was commissioned in 1988 in the artillery, and in 89 I went on active duty as an artillery officer in the Army. In their wisdom, made me branch transfer to quartermaster, so I became a logistician. And looking back, I realized there's a lot more need for logistics in the world than there is calls for fire. So it worked out well. I served on active duty for 8 years, left the service in 97 when I was going to get deployed on 10 days notice to not fun point. I was a geographic single bachelor of or single parent of a wild 16-year-old stepdaughter. And so I left the service. 3 years later, resigned my commission, and then 7.5 years after that, the Lord led me back into the Army in the reserves. And I spent my last 14 years as an Army reservist, 5.5 of that mobilized at Peterson Air Force Base, serving with the Army Space and Missile Defense Command. Finished my career as a space officer and a logistician. My journey into floor coverings was an interesting one because I did not anticipate going into franchising or going into business ownership. And I was approached as I was leaving active duty by someone who saw my resume online and said, "Hey, we'd like to talk to you about this. Think it might be a good fit." And as I talked to them, I realized that it really might be. My Army logistics, which has kind of become my life, is really what drove me to Floor Coverings International, realizing that bringing all the moving pieces together to produce a product for my clients was kind of right in my wheelhouse. So I started this journey about 2 years ago to get into floor coverings as I was leaving active duty and before I retired from the reserves, and bought my franchise 18 months ago, and have been, or I guess about 16 months ago, and have been successful beyond my expectations, and I think most people at FCI's expectations over the last 16 months.
That's good stuff. That's a great story. And you and I were talking earlier, a 7.5 year break in service, and then being able to go back in 2008 post 9/11. So I think you got out just prior to 9/11 happening. Yeah, that's just a cool part of the story. And yeah, it's great. Thank you for your service, decades of service to your country, and congratulations on the success you've had at FCI since. So let's start with this. So most people are probably saying, what is Floor Coverings International? So just give us a brief background on what the company does and what you do as a franchisee.
Okay. Floor Coverings is the #1 in-home flooring business in North America. We've got, I think, over 200 franchisees through the US and Canada at this point, and we're trying to grow that more. FCI is built on a mobile showroom model where each franchisee is locally owned, and each franchise is locally owned. We all have a small minivan with over 3,000 samples on board. We go into people's homes, look at their space, look at their vision for their job, take measurements, and then we let them shop in their own home in their own lighting. And then if they sign with us then or later, we're going to manage that job from start to finish to produce the floors that they want. We stay engaged all the way through. We manage that project for them rather than the big box stores who hand them an installer's name and say, "Call these guys." And I've had too many customers that have been caught in the middle of that. And so we stay engaged. If there's problems, we're going to be there to make sure they get resolved. So it's a great opportunity.
Yeah, that's really cool. So you allow people to shop for flooring in their homes, and you handle soup to nuts. It sounds like the sales, the order of the product, the installation, and then any follow-up afterward. So do you have a lot of people that work for your franchise, or how do you guys do this? Do you outsource any of this stuff?
So I have a team of right now 3 growing to 5 starting on Monday. But I have about 25 or 30 installers that are all subcontracted to me. So my team consists of currently 1 sales guy and myself who do all the sales, and an office manager. I've taken the leap of faith to hire 2 more salespeople starting next Monday. In fact, I've got to send out the official offer letters today to bring them on board and start the training process. But the goal is to have a business that is doing $2 to $3 million worth of sales within the next 24 months. And so we've been very blessed, and we're growing. We did over $1 million this first full calendar year. And that was with a lot of challenges in the mix, but God's really blessed us.
No, that's fantastic, Rick. Congratulations on that. And you're able to do it with a relatively light staff. I know some folks that are getting into franchising, especially some of the restaurant service businesses. There's always concerns over, labor right now, right? We just don't have as many people participating in the labor force, and it's tough to find them. But it sounds like with you, it sounds like there's at least with the installers, it's a 1099 relationship. You act as the sales arm and sales and service.
Roger. And I will say, regardless of what job, what business you're going into, employees or laborers, 1099, regardless, that's our greatest challenge. Finding people that want to work, finding people that will get the vision that we have for the business. I took a step this last week and held a team meeting that included all of my installers and my team members that I employ, and kind of did some vision casting. Folks in the military will understand that the idea of kind of giving commanders intent and showing them where I want to take this, what I want to make this into, and it was huge. I encourage doing that with whether they're employees or 1099s, bringing those people in on your vision for what you want to do with your business, regardless of what that business does as a whole.
So when you were in the Army, at what point did you say, I'm going to be in flooring? At what point did that, cross your mind? And when you were in this discovery process of determining which, franchise you were going to go into, how did you land on that one?
Well, during my military time, I was never in the idea that I was going to be in flooring. I had thought about trying to be in business for myself and had thought about being an independent consultant. And I just never felt like I had a skill set that would fill a niche that would make me profitable. So as I was coming off active duty, I had a job lined up to be a government contractor and was going to do the easy thing. And I got a call a week before my orders ended and I could start my contracting gig saying, hey, we can't bring you on because your top secret security clearance hasn't been reinvestigated recently enough. So I ended up in two and a half months of not working. And it was during that time that a entrepreneur coach, saw my resume on ZipRecruiter and said, hey, this might be something you're interested in. I said, well, I'm not much of an entrepreneur, but I'll talk to the guy. And so we started talking, and I realized, being in business for myself, got young kids. I turned 60 today. I've got a 10 and a 7-year-old and a wife who's considerably younger than I am, that I want to be able to set up for the future. and decided that being business for myself was a better way to do that than being a slimy contractor. So I was introduced to 4 different companies, 2 of which I just poo-pooed right away. One I was very interested in, but realized that the market was significantly more restrictive than the flooring business. And my logistics background really made flooring a very natural choice. It's bringing all those moving pieces together, figuring out how to solve the problems and provide my customers with the best service experience they can have.
Yeah, good stuff. Rick, one of the things veterans getting into franchising, we asked the question at the start of this, is financing, access to capital. Are you able to share with us, what did it cost to get into this franchise? How did you fund it? How do most veterans fund it? What does that look like?
So FCI is not your most expensive. It's not the least expensive of franchises. I think my initial outlay was about $150,000. I've since had to put some more money into it, so I've probably got about $200,000 invested in it already, if not a little more. I was blessed in that I had an inheritance from my parents when they passed, that I was able to use earnings off of that investment to fund this business. And I've since executed portions of a home equity line of credit for some of the infusion that I needed to do. But I know a lot of vets that have taken their 401ks and been able to roll those into financing their business. Others have taken small business loans. Mm-hmm. I feel very blessed that I haven't had to do that. I don't have that, have the need of servicing those debts hanging over my head. At the same time, it's a very viable way of doing it, to get yourself into a position where you can set up your family for tremendous success.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's for vets that don't, have some of the options that maybe you had available to you. There's lots of different ways to access capital, SBA loans, term loans,
right?
401ks, you mentioned, TSP access. And a lot of times that we'll get into that a little bit later. Some of those methods in the franchising one and the boot camp stuff. Tell us. So, a lot of veterans are also concerned with, I'm going to quit my day job and I'm going to start this, right? So at what point, did you, and it sounds like weren't working at the time, but what advice would you give to veterans who maybe are thinking about that? How long did it take you before, FCI was generating an income stream for you to the point where, and then beyond? How long does that typically take?
I think what they advise, what they plan on, is probably 8 to 12 months before you've got a steady income stream. I was very blessed that we hit the ground running. I bought an existing franchise where my predecessors had floundered for 2.5 years. And as best I could tell, they had sold $250,000 in 2.5 years. And I came in my first 4 months, I sold over $400,000 worth of work. So we were, on paper at least, in the black within the first few months. The fact of the matter is, there's a lot of reinvestment in everything else. One of the things about, depending on how you set up your business, it's going to drive some of that income stream requirements. If you're using your 401k, one of the things I learned in the discovery process was you have to build into your budget a salary for you as an officer. And I think if you have a small business loan, you're in that same boat. Me, on the other hand, I'm a sole proprietor LLC, so I can draw money off the company. And I started doing that about 6 months in, where I was taking a monthly draw. And prior to that, we were able to live off of the income that we had and the state we had. I still am not receiving my military retirement check, so we've been a little tighter than we like. But I also foresee that that's all turning around as I get a better handle on the books and my business processes. One of my great challenges, and it's one that I think most vets are going to face, is I'd never been in business for myself. I'd never had to do the books. I'd never had to manage all of those moving pieces. I'd managed teams of people. I'd managed large projects and so on. It can be challenging. That's a big thing for folks coming into the business. So my recommendation is invest the time necessary to learn that stuff early on.
Yeah, good stuff. Rick, we're going to wrap up here in a couple of minutes, but I wanted to ask you, what do you love most about franchising?
Well, two things. One, I'm able to be at my kids' school plays and school things. I'm able to arrange my schedule as necessary. Doesn't mean I make every one of them, but I'm able to make a lot more than I was when I was in uniform. The other thing that I love is, particularly with FCI, their support of me as a franchisee is absolutely phenomenal. They're so vested in me being successful because that's where they get success, is when I'm making money, they're making money. They have been there to support me at every need. I can reach out on the phone today and connect with 2 or 3 different people who can answer my questions or help walk me through whatever challenges I'm facing. We've spent a number of times, myself or my office manager, on the phone or on a Zoom call working through QuickBooks or business planning. They are outstanding. In fact, my original office manager had come out of the hospitality industry, and her comment was she had never seen better corporate support than what we got from FCI. I pray that the businesses that your folks are looking at and choose to join, I the same kind of support that I've gotten from FCI, because that really is the key to franchising. You're working with a company who has done this 100 times, has the experience, and can teach you.
Yeah, we like to say, a lot of folks going into franchising is going into business for yourself, not by yourself. And
right,
that's definitely true in franchising, where you've got, mom and dad at the franchisor level helping you out, but you've also got your siblings, right? Your fellow franchisees who are in different geographical territories and usually more than happy to help you. When you go into business by yourself, you don't have, your competition ain't going to help you out, right? You got some issues within your particular industry, and phone a friend kind of a thing isn't quite as easy because those competitors aren't willing to. They don't have your best interests in mind, and you don't have a mothership that has seen and has the experience of having seen probably most of the problems that you're encountering, or the challenges, or even seizing on the opportunities. And they're like, yep, we've seen that movie before, and this is how you can handle that. And that's just it. And I think that speaks volumes for either somebody who has never run a business before, doesn't have experience in the industry. That's the kind of support network that you get. And sounds like FCI is doing a great job for you guys there.
Oh, they are. And I love FCI, and I'll recommend them to anybody. I get calls all the time from prospective franchisees, and I can never say enough about floor coverings. They are phenomenal.
Yeah. Awesome, Rick. Listen, I wish you continued success. Last question. Would you do it again?
Yes. I'm working harder and probably more hours than I did for years, for decades. But as my wife will tell you, that I'm happier than I have been in the 13 years we've been together. I would definitely do it again. I see the light at the end of the tunnel, where I'm able to hire somebody to run this business and I can step out of it and engage when and where I need to, and have more time for my family. So I'm looking forward to that. And right now it's a season in time where I'm investing a lot of effort and a lot of time, knowing that the payoff is coming.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Listen, again, congratulations to you on your military service, on your success that you've gotten into franchising. I think you're an inspiration for everybody that's attending here, and congratulations. Have a great holiday. Thanks for joining us today.
Well, thanks for having me. It's been a real pleasure. God bless. Bye-bye.
Take care.